Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Hauntra. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so that you don't miss any exciting coming up videos. In the small, tight-knit town of Ash Hollow, the arrival of a mysterious woman named Evelyn draws attention. Evelyn moves into an abandoned house at the edge of the woods, a place shrouded in local legends of hauntings. Her pale, ghostly appearance and unnerving silence immediately set the townsfolk on edge. Children whisper about seeing her standing motionless at her window late at night, staring into the distance. Evelyn's occasional ventures into town are met with unease as her presence seems to drain warmth from the air. Rumors spread that she speaks to no one except to herself in a language no one understands. The once lively neighborhood grows quiet, with people avoiding the path near her house. One stormy night, a curious teenager named Adam dares to knock on her door, and when it creaks open, the chilling sight of her vacant, unblinking eyes freezes him in terror. Adam's friends laugh off his story until they find him trembling and pale the next morning, muttering about Evelyn. He refuses to describe what he saw, but warns everyone to stay away. The town's pastor decides to investigate, armed with holy symbols and prayers. When he visits Evelyn's house, he is greeted by a chilling wind as the door creaks open on its own. Inside, the air feels heavy and faint whispers echo through the empty rooms. Evelyn appears behind him, her movements unnatural, as if gliding rather than walking. She smiles, but it's devoid of warmth, her teeth unnervingly sharp. The pastor flees, claiming her voice spoke of shadows rising and lives fading. That night, the church bells toll without wind, and the pastor is found unconscious at his altar, clutching a note that reads, "Do not come again." The town spirals into paranoia as Evelyn's presence becomes more unsettling. A farmer reports his livestock acting erratically, their eyes reflecting pale light after Evelyn walked past his fields. Children wake up screaming about a woman whispering to them in their dreams. The mayor convenes a meeting to discuss the growing fear. But the room grows cold as Evelyn suddenly appears, silently sitting in the back. Her head tilts unnaturally, and her unblinking stare sends shivers down everyone's spine. When asked to leave, she only smiles and mouths words no one hears. But they feel them, deep in their minds, like an echo of despair. After she departs, the room falls into chaos, with people swearing they saw her lingering in every shadow. A wandering vagabond named Elias arrives in Ash Hollow, claiming to know Evelyn's true nature. He recounts an old tale of a woman betrayed and left to die in the woods centuries ago, her spirit forever bound to the land. Elias warns the townsfolk that Evelyn is not human, but a harbinger of death, feeding on fear. Skeptics dismiss him until he confronts Evelyn in the middle of town. She speaks for the first time, her voice resonating like a distant wail. "Leave if you value your soul," she says, her shadow growing and engulfing Elias. When the darkness recedes, only his empty clothes remain, smoldering faintly. The morning after Elias's disappearance, the town buzzes with fear. Parents keep their children indoors, but one boy, curious and daring, sneaks out to catch a glimpse of Evelyn's house. Jonah, no older than 10, ventures into the woods near her property. Hours pass, and when he doesn't return, a frantic search begins. The woods feel unnatural, with shadows that twist and stretch despite the sunlight. Evelyn appears silently, standing on her porch, watching the search party with a faint smile. "You won't find him," she whispers to no one in particular, her voice carrying on the wind. That evening, Jonah's mother hears faint tapping at her window. When she opens it, she finds his shoes neatly placed on the sill, but no sign of her son. Ash Hollow descends into chaos as Evelyn's influence grows stronger. Shadows in homes seem to move independently, whispering unintelligible words. People begin to see fleeting glimpses of her reflection in mirrors, even when miles from her house. The town's doctor, known for his skepticism, locks himself in his clinic, claiming Evelyn spoke to him through the eyes of his patients. Desperate, he writes a message on his office wall. She sees all. Hours later, townsfolk find the clinic eerily silent, with the doctor missing. The only clue is the blood-red words smeared across a mirror. I told you. The mayor attempts to organize a mass exodus, but roads out of town now seem endlessly looping back to Ash Hollow, trapping everyone. Determined to understand Evelyn's origins, librarian Margaret digs into the town's archives. She discovers records of a woman named Evelyn who was accused of witchcraft centuries ago. Evelyn was betrayed by her lover, who falsely accused her to save himself. She was burned alive in the woods, cursing the town with her dying breath. Margaret realizes Evelyn is Evelyn's manifestation, her spirit seeking vengeance. Margaret shares this revelation with the townsfolk, but fear and mistrust have already eroded their unity. That night, Margaret hears scratching at her door. Opening it, she finds Evelyn standing there, holding an ancient locket. Do you wish to know more? Evelyn asks before vanishing into the night. In a desperate attempt to reclaim the town, the remaining townsfolk gather at the church to hold a mass prayer. The pastor leads the group, chanting protective verses, but the candles flicker and extinguish one by one. The heavy oak doors creak open, and Evelyn glides in, her presence chilling the air. She does not speak, but stares at each person in turn, her hollow eyes seeming to pierce their souls. A woman screams as her shadow rises from the ground, twisting into a grotesque shape before enveloping her. Evelyn finally speaks. You cannot pray away what you've brought upon yourselves. The church bells toll ominously, though no one rings them, and the congregation flees in terror. Margaret, convinced the locket holds the key to Evelyn's power, sneaks into Evelyn's house. The interior is cold and sparse, with faint whispers echoing through the walls. She finds the locket on a dusty mantle and grabs it, but the room seems to come alive, with shadows clawing at her. Evelyn appears, her face calm but her eyes burning with anger. That belonged to my child, she says, her voice like a distant thunderstorm. Margaret pleads for mercy, but Evelyn's expression remains cold. The next morning, the locket is found hanging from the town's largest tree, dripping with blood, and Margaret is never seen again. The woods surrounding Evelyn's house become eerily quiet, with even animals avoiding the area. People hear laughter and faint crying echoing from the trees at night, always leading back to Evelyn's home. A group of hunters, emboldened by liquor, venture into the woods to end the curse. Hours later, only one staggers back, his eyes wide with terror. She's everywhere, he mutters before collapsing. In his hand, he clutches a piece of fabric torn from Evelyn's dress, but it disintegrates into ash before anyone can examine it. The mayor declares the woods forbidden, but whispers say Evelyn's reach now extends even beyond the forest. As fear spreads like wildfire, the townsfolk begin to notice changes in their own homes. Objects move on their own, shadows stretch unnaturally, and whispers emerge from empty rooms. Families huddle together, too terrified to sleep. In one household, a young woman named Clara finds her reflection smiling back at her when her own face remains still. The reflection speaks in Evelyn's voice, "You're all mine now." Clara screams, but her family finds her standing alone, clutching her throat and unable to speak. That night, more townsfolk report similar experiences, their voices trembling as they describe Evelyn's presence in their mirrors and windows. The mayor, desperate to calm the panic, orders all mirrors to be covered. But even without them, Evelyn's influence is palpable. A group of defiant townsfolk, led by the brash and skeptical Henry, decides to confront Evelyn directly. Armed with torches and weapons, they march towards her house, shouting curses and threats. As they approach, the forest seems to close in around them, the air growing colder with each step. Shadows dart between the trees and unnatural laughter echoes, making the group hesitate. When they reach Evelyn's porch, she is already there, waiting with a serene smile. "You've come to entertain me," she says, her voice calm but laced with menace. One by one, the group is consumed by the shadows, their screams muffled by the oppressive darkness. Only their leader, Henry, stumbles back to town, his hair turned white and his eyes wide with madness. The mayor, now desperate, calls in experts from outside Ash Hollow to deal with Evelyn. Paranormal investigators armed with cameras and equipment arrive, scoffing at the locals' fears. They set up in Evelyn's house, determined to capture evidence of her existence. As the cameras roll, Evelyn appears, her presence dimming the lights and freezing the air. The investigators begin to panic as their devices malfunction, emitting piercing static. Evelyn steps closer, her voice soft and mocking. "You think your toys can stop me?" Footage from one camera survives, showing Evelyn's face distorting grotesquely before the screen cuts to black. The investigators flee in terror, leaving their equipment behind. The next morning, their van is found abandoned on the road leading out of town. Evelyn begins visiting the homes of select townsfolk at night, offering cryptic bargains. "Give me what I seek," she says, "and I'll leave you in peace." No one dares to ask what she wants, but those who refuse her offer vanish within days, their homes left eerily silent and cold. One brave soul, a blacksmith named Gerald, confronts her, demanding answers. Evelyn smiles and says, "What I want has always been here." Before Gerald can respond, his shadow rises behind him, engulfing him in darkness. By morning, his forge is cold, and his tools are arranged in a perfect circle around a single blackened rose. The townsfolk realize Evelyn is toying with them, feeding on their fear while withholding the true nature of her demands. Ash Hollow begins to feel like a living nightmare, with Evelyn's reach growing stronger by the day. Families attempt to flee under cover of darkness, but the roads out of town remain impassable, looping endlessly back to where they started. Some choose to hide in basements or attics, but Evelyn finds them regardless. In one house, a family huddles together, praying fervently, when Evelyn appears in their doorway. She doesn't speak, but raises her hand, and the family's shadows begin to writhe and twist before pulling them into the floor. By dawn, the house is empty, with only faint footprints leading into the woods. The remaining townsfolk resign themselves to their fate, too afraid to leave their homes. The ghost of Elias, the vagabond who once warned the town, appears to a small group of survivors. His form is faint and flickering, his voice strained and distant. "She feeds on despair," he tells them. "The only way to end this is to break her tether to this place." He reveals that her locket, buried beneath the roots of the largest tree in the woods, holds the key to her power. Before he can say more, a dark shadow envelops him, and he vanishes with a chilling scream. The group resolves to retrieve the locket, knowing it may be their only chance to free Ash Hollow from Evelyn's grip. Determined to end Evelyn's torment, the group of survivors, comprised of the mayor, a hunter, the librarian Margaret's younger brother, and a young mother, ventures into the woods. The air grows heavier with each step, but the sounds of the forest replaced by an oppressive silence. Trees seem to twist toward them, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. Evelyn's laughter rings out, faint at first, then louder, disorienting them. They reach the massive tree Elias described, its roots gnarled and blackened, as though poisoned by centuries of darkness. As the hunter begins to dig, Evelyn appears, her form more ghostly and terrifying than ever. "You think you can take what's mine?" she hisses, her voice shaking the ground beneath their feet. Shadows writhe around her, forming nightmarish shapes that close in on the group. After what feels like an eternity of digging, the hunter unearths the locket, its surface tarnished but pulsing faintly with a strange light. The moment it's uncovered, the forest erupts into chaos. The wind howls, and the ground quakes as Evelyn screams, her voice full of anguish and fury. "That is all I have left of him," she cries, reaching for the locket. The survivors hold her back with desperate determination, using torches and hastily scrawled symbols they found in Elias's notes. The young mother, clutching the locket, feels a surge of emotion as images flood her mind. Evelyn, as a loving mother, betrayed and murdered her child taken from her. Tears streaming down her face, the mother whispers, "You've suffered enough, let this end." Evelyn, now more human than ghost, pleads for the locket, her voice breaking with despair. "He was my son, my everything." The survivors hesitate, unsure if destroying the locket will free the town or doom them all. The young mother steps forward, holding the locket tightly. "Your pain has consumed you, but it's time to let go," she says, her voice steady despite her fear. Evelyn's form flickers, torn between fury and anguish. As the group begins a ritual from the notes, Evelyn lets out a piercing scream, her form dissolving into shadow. The locket bursts into light, illuminating the woods with an otherworldly glow. For a moment, Evelyn appears as she once was, a grieving mother, and whispers, "Thank you," before vanishing completely. With Evelyn's spirit finally at peace, the oppressive atmosphere lifts from Ash Hollow. The woods regain their natural beauty, the twisted trees straightening, and the air filling with birdsong once more. The townsfolk cautiously emerge from their homes, marveling at the sudden change. The survivors return to the town, exhausted but relieved, bearing the locket as proof of their ordeal. The mayor addresses the town, vowing to honor Evelyn's memory by creating a shrine near the tree where her locket was found. Though peace returns, the survivors often feel her presence in small, harmless ways. A cool breeze, a fleeting shadow, or the faint sound of a lullaby. Evelyn is gone, but her story remains, a reminder of the pain that consumed her and the town that finally set her free. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more new videos.